And, the Anunnaki are very aware that you live again and again. And it is, in some way, their rationale for tricking you, for getting you to believe false things. They feel, or even to get you to go and fight their wars. Remember, a long time ago, to work for the gods meant that you carried out their battles on earth. And even some gods would reward you. If you died in battle, then you would immediately be going to the higher realms of heaven, etc. So when one examines these stories without beliefs and perspectives getting all wound up together, when one puts beliefs aside and you are beliefless for a while, just observing, just putting the data together, and if you can detach enough, and if you can get your DNA to keep quiet, again, these Anunnakis like to work with your DNA to get you all fired up. If you can keep things pretty quiet, you realize that it makes no difference who the gods were. There's holes in the story. On recess, you were talking about the Jesus story. People, we will tell you again and again and again and again that the story as you have heard it with Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and all the other players, it is not a reality. It was constructed much later on to suit the needs of the church. The mother church that allows no women. Fascinating, yes? Mm-hmm. Yes. So you were bringing up the idea that our vehicle was said something about it's all an Anunnaki game as to which god they want to put in front of the people. And you said that you were reading The End Days by Mr. Sitchen, and yes, that he concluded...
Mm-hmm. He theorized that Marduk was the Jesus character.
Marduk played the role of the Jesus.
Home Instead Senior Care understands the challenges of caring for an aging loved one.
Oh, the kettle.
That's why...
Character.
Marduk played the role of the Jesus character. And we would say, if you remember correctly from our early works, we said that the Jesus situation was set up as a holographic insert. Mm-hmm. To wrap your head around that one. And so it is a bit of buffoonery and foolishness when humans relate to the Jesus story, a story that was never really there. It is like people say, well, I was Prince Charming in the Cinderella story. You must understand, people, that the conscious mind really desires to put things together, even if it puts things together erroneously. And the Anunnaki want you to put things together erroneously. They want you to worship something. And they want to steer you away from understanding reincarnation. Because if you understand reincarnation, and if you start remembering and really putting things together, rather than being flattered by who you think you were in another lifetime, that is your biggest downfall, folks. If you feel flattered by some psychic who tells you that you were Mrs. George Washington, or Mrs. Santa Claus, or Mrs. Easter Bunny. You get the point, yes?
Yes.
That it is foolishness. And sometimes people do cross their timelines. But often the association of who was who and when is completely bogus. Completely. You have people on the world today who are claiming they are this person and this person and this person. Yet you have really powerful people who are no good nicks, who really steer away from letting anyone know who they are while they travel around the planet in their own footprints. So there's a danger to some of the old reincarnated players, many of which who have had strong Anunnaki influence. And these would be brutal tyrants, for example, who kept people in ignorance, who forced people to obey. This would be part of carrying on an Anunnaki story, to make certain that the people of Earth are kept busy, that they worship, and that they never put the Anunnaki story together. Yet, that they keep reasserting the presence of the Anunnaki everywhere. In the Western world, that presence of the Anunnaki is reasserted in homes around the world with the presence of the cross and a dead Jesus on that cross. A warning of sorts that if you dare to go to the cross, the planet of the crossing, it is dangerous and death could await you. It's one way of looking at it. The cross is part of a grid. You live in a grid of energy. You cannot perceive it, but you are in a fabric, a grid of energy. That grid has many, many layers to it. Some like to label those layers in terms of numbers. But, numbers are irrelevant. Some people like to give those levels names. Yet you live in a name called third dimension. And your mind, your energy field, your awareness, your perceptions, it moves in and out of dimensions all the time. It moves between various levels of the grid or the energy. We were speaking earlier about magnetic anomalies and black holes. These would be points contrary to the grid. If you think about a grid, it is lined up, much as the Masonics learned to grid a city. North and south, east and west. This creates a grid. You look at the game board, the black and white checkered. We've said it's a map for navigating reality. It's a grid. If you look at the spiral or the black hole, it is the antithesis of a grid. And yet the spiral is an indicator of the shape of many things, whether you are looking at a seashell or the shape of the galaxy. So we just want you all to be more alert to the idea of your own sloppy thinking and your own sloppy beliefs. And see if you can spend an afternoon or an hour at least and say to yourself, all right, I'm going to be beliefless this afternoon and see what ideas come in while I'm working in the garden, and allow myself to receive rather than to force things to fit into my beliefs. So now let's go back to creatures and the underworld and some of the challenges that you are facing as a people with some of the developments within the underworld. First of all, there's been an acceleration, as there are at times, in quakes. You had, a few weeks ago, a series of quakes that occurred along the border of India and Nepal, near the vicinity of Mount Everest. This is very big because, as we've said, Mount Everest is your highest mountain, and if you want to find visitors, particularly the Anunnaki, they really value the mountain. They taught this to the Chinese. Put the mountain to your back. All right? The mountain is to your back. It is in the north. And you are going to look forward to the south with the mountain behind you. Knowing this, knowing their preference for mountains, and knowing the historical evidence of preference for mountains by the gods to retreat to the mountains, even for the monasteries, you'll find them in some of the most outrageous perches of mountains.